Hey everyone, my name is Kurt Lingle and I am the Vice President and Partner at Celtic, which is a full-service advertising agency headquartered in Milwaukee's historic Third Ward. And for the past 30 years, we've had the absolute privilege of working with some incredible brands from local to national, one of which we're going to talk about and more importantly with in a minute. But I'm also joined by my partner in crime, our co-host today, Pat McGovern, who heads up business development for Ascedia, a digital consulting firm located right here in their Third Ward of Milwaukee. And I've known Pat for many years on a personal and professional level, and he brings a lot of perspective to the table. So, Pat, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for the great introduction. And Dave, thanks for your time today. This should be good, everybody.
Yeah. Looking forward to it, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Pat, quick question for you. How many years has Ascedia been in business?
In September, it'll be 20 years. 20-year anniversary since we opened the doors. So as you said, we're a digital shop. That's what we do. And one of the areas that we focus a lot in is manufacturing, hence why we're talking to Dave and looking to get his insights and share those with everybody else.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on that. And
thanks.
You know, it's interesting as we transition into our questions with Dave. You know, it's 2020 has definitely been a challenging year for all businesses. It's been a year of making adjustments, dealing with new normals, and in many cases, we've had to throw out the game plan and just create a new one on the fly. And a quote that I want to share, and for those that know me, I love to share quotes, and this is one I've used before, but I think it's very appropriate for the year 2020, and it comes from Mike Tyson, of all people. But Mike Tyson said something along the lines of, everyone has a game plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I think when you think of 2020, literally many businesses have been punched in the mouth. But today we want to keep things positive. We want to keep things motivational because there's been a lot of great success stories about companies that have persevered and made adjustments during these times. And Kusel is one of those companies that has persevered and pushed forward, and it's a good story. So let's get started with that. Our guest today is Dave Coughlin, the Director of Marketing and Sales at Kusel Equipment, and a manufacturer proudly headquartered in Watertown, Wisconsin. Dave, you're a good sport for being here. Welcome to the hot seat.
Thanks, Kurt. Good to be here. Can't wait for the questions. Let's go.
All right. So I got to start here. So we just got done touting the fact that Celtic's been in business for 30 years. And Pat, you just confirmed that Ascedia has been in business for 20 years. But Kusel has that number beat by a significant, crazy amount. Dave, how many years has Kusel Equipment been in business?
Well, Kurt, I'm going to answer your question this way. There's one thing between the three of us that has us beat, and that's the state of Wisconsin being incorporated for 172 years. We were incorporated a year after the state, so we're 171 years in business.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow. And I should say, full disclosure, Kusel is a great client partner of ours. We work together in a number of different ways. But I'll say the one thing that I've always thought was cool about working with a brand like Kusel is just how historic and iconic of a company that is. When you work with a brand like Kusel, it really is taking a step back in time, and it's been cool to see how they progressed to where they are today. So, Dave, if you could, before we get started, or maybe as we get started, just give us some fast facts. Tell us about Kusel, its history, what your role in the company is.
Yep. So, like I said, we've been in business 171 years. Our founder, Daniel Kusel, immigrated from Germany in 1849, put down his roots here in Watertown, and the company has never left the city of Watertown. This is a great story in the fact that there's basically been two families that have owned Kusel Equipment Company. It's been the Kusels, and the Kusels sold to the Smiths, who currently own the business. And you know, we made our history in really helping the dairy industry in Wisconsin. If you go back to the start of the business, Daniel Kusel was a tinsmith by trade, and basically figured, hey, I could do this in Europe for the dairy businesses. I'm going to do it here in the States, and you know, Wisconsin's a fertile land for that. So really started out being basically a catch-all for all the dairy businesses in the immediate Watertown area. So he was doing everything from, creating tables to selling them jugs to selling them overalls.
Wow.
Kurt, in the conversations that you and I have had, we found old pieces of history laying around here, and one of them was a catalog from the early 1900s that I think had about 58 pages in it, and it was amazing all the things that they were selling to the dairy industry at that time. Fast forward into the early 80s, and we got into a little bit different type of business, into stainless steel drains, sanitary drains, and really as a complement to our dairy equipment that we really are known for nowadays. The stainless steel drains became something when we were talking to dairy companies and cheese making manufacturers. Hey, you know what? You're doing this expansion. You guys probably need some sanitary drains. We make those as well. And, early 80s, everything kind of just took off from there. And it's been a nice two-pronged business. So to this day, we're still making high-quality cheese manufacturing equipment, as well as high-quality stainless steel drainage for sanitary needs across multiple industries.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Dave, if you could maybe talk a little bit about what your role at the company is.
So I was brought in here 3 years ago. And again, talking about a company at that time that was 168 years old and never had anybody that was dedicated to marketing. As I started diving in and looking at the company, and Kurt, you alluded to it a little bit, there's a great story that's going to be told here. And, over my 3 years that I've been here so far, we've really done a good job, very methodical job in telling that story. The other portion of my responsibilities center on the sales aspect of the organization. I was initially brought in to oversee the sales on our drain business. We sell through 21 manufacturer representatives in North America. I'm also now involved in the dairy side of our business, not so much on the sales side. It's really a business that you have to know inside and out, and we have a team here that really does know that. But I'm helping as much as I can and doing marketing for the dairy side as well. So just adding my experience in a couple of different industries into here and helping out.
Yeah, that's great. It's a good story, and an excellent example of how your company has really been able to transition into a different segment, if you will, when it came to drains. So I find that fascinating. Hey Pat, I'm going to throw it your way. You want to throw a couple questions Dave's way and get us started over there?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Dave, just for my education too, what's your go-to product? Is there something that Kusel is really known for, within those two spaces, right?
Yeah. So on the drain side specifically, Pat, it's our KE drain. Okay. The KE drain itself is about a 35-pound floor drain. It's got a 1/2-inch top plate, 6-inch body. And it's really our number one seller. We sell a number of variations off of that. To give you an idea, we've got about 750,000 SKUs that come off of that one product. So there's a lot of different ways people can take that and make it into what it is that they need for their application. On the dairy side of the business, we're really known for a couple of innovations. It's sort of our agitators and our tables. And when I say tables, you're talking about the guys that are dropping, curd or dropping whey and milk into a table, and they're getting curd as an outshoot, and they're taking that and turning that into cheddar, or they're turning that into other applications. We go all the way up to a system that will actually make an entire cottage cheese product. So, you're talking about very sophisticated systems on that side of the business for companies that, if I threw names out, you guys would definitely know them. So, everywhere in the country and quite frankly around the world, there's some of our Kusel tables in a lot of these cheese manufacturers.
That's cool. That's cool. So, Dave, you mentioned that you've been at the firm now for 3 years. You're coming in at a really interesting time. It seems like, starting about the time that you did, that manufacturers in general, and it's still happening today, are really kind of now looking at saying, I need to do some more marketing. prior to this, it seemed like it was more of a more of a sales type of function and a little bit of marketing, but it was mostly graphic design or somebody in the office that would do one or two things. And yeah, marketing was, one of the things that they did. But now it's more of a dedicated kind of role. What's driving that, Dave? What's driving that one and two? What do you see happening when you're talking to other manufacturers in the space as their view about marketing?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points that are really driving it. I think differentiation obviously is the number one piece. And I think from a marketing standpoint, again, going back to the story and going back to the brand, how do you really tell that story and really have your brand driven home? We're in a product space where on a drain, I can't put a logo, I can't put a name, I can't put anything on that. So once the thing's in the ground, people aren't going to know that it's my product, right? So how do I stay in front of them? How do I keep them going? How do I, keep that name in front of them when the next order needs to come along? On the other side of that, I think, we've talked, between the three of us extensively outside of here, how do you take the air cover from marketing and have it disseminated down to the sales level? And how are they carrying that same message? It's another differentiating point. We're in a unique position with our drains where I have 21 other companies with other needs that have to carry my message. How do I educate them, not only on my brand, not only on my product, but on my mission and on my vision and everything that I stand for? So that's where marketing is playing another role for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If we could, let's stick on brand for a second. And Dave, obviously, Pat and I know your background. You've worked in a number of different verticals, different categories, in some cases very different, right? Travel destination, tourism, manufacturing. But what's interesting to me is when we're talking about marketing, we're talking about brand, is the commitment and the understanding that you had that there was a need to really tell that story. And I want to get back to that because that really just impacts everything. And there was such a story to be told. And when you came in, that was one of the first things that you identified, and your team at Kusel identified how you guys really started to cultivate that story. And I think obviously we've seen changes over the years where, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's tourism, or whether it's, food and beverage, every company has a story. Could you talk a little bit about what the motivation was, where you said when you came on board, gee, you know what? We got to start here. It's coming out of the starting blocks, the starting gates here. Let's tell this story, why that was so important to get that nailed down first before any other things started to take place.
I think it was twofold. I think the first thing I realized was, we make a quality product, whether it be on the dairy side or be on the drain side. And I had conversations with our reps really early on to introduce myself. And I asked them all the same question. And I said, what's one thing that I could do immediately that could help you guys when you're out working our product line? And to a person, they all said one thing. I go in for a meeting, whether it's with a wholesaler, whether it's with an engineer, whether it's with a contractor, and I get 30 minutes to talk about your product. I spend 25 explaining who you are, and then I get 5 minutes to talk about your product. Can you do me a favor and start getting your name out there so that these people know who you are before I walk in the door, so that I can have 25 minutes to talk about your products and not just talk about who you are and your brand? And I think that was sort of the light bulb, the aha moment, right, that we all have, where I go, man, in the state of Wisconsin, we're really well known. In Northern Illinois, we're really well known. In, Eastern Iowa, we're really well known. But when I'd have a conversation with our rep in California, our rep in Texas, it was like, nobody knows who you guys are. We know you got a great product, or we wouldn't have you as our line, and the opposite challenge was sort of true on the dairy side. We have such a quality product, I believe, on the dairy side, that it's generational, right? When you have a guy who's in a private cheese manufacturer, grandpa might have bought that table from us. Dad never touched the thing. That thing just worked for them for 30, 40 years. Dad's getting ready to retire, and the grandchildren are now getting ready to take over the business, and they may need new tables. They don't know who we are. And so we've got to find a way to get our name in front of them so that they go, hey, you know what? That Kusel table that's been sitting there for 40 years, those guys are still in business and they're still making quality products. I need to replace them, and now I know where to go.
So let me hang on that for a minute.
Yeah.
That's a really great point, Dave. So okay, so the challenge is we got to make our brand name more well known. My guess is, and I'm not as familiar with the business as Kurt as you are, but my guess is, okay, we don't have a huge ad budget, but we're not going after the world, right? We're going after people who are interested in industrial drains or dairy, right? So okay, but what have been some of the success stories, Dave, that have been like, this has been really helping to get our name more well established, right? You've been in this position now long enough where you can start seeing some lights happening, right? Some wins.
I think, and again, you know, and again, full disclosure, we're all talking about it. Pat, you and I have known each other for 15 years, right? I've been able to go through some wars with you and some challenges, and we've done a lot of really, really creative things together. And I think what I took away from a lot of our past and a lot of the future is we had to become a company that people wanted to do business with. We had to be known. We had to be the product that we were putting forward, right? And it was, how do you identify those people in your organization and make a personality for each of them when they're selling your product? So where are we winning? We put a personality to the brand. We put traits to the brand. And we said, you know what? This is who we are. This is how we're going to talk. We're going to be trusted. But you know what? It's not just going to be in our marketing. It's going to be in the way that we sell. It's going to be in the way that we talk to our manufacturing reps. So when we start winning and when we start seeing things, it's sort of become this, I'll call it an arc that kind of peaked in the beginning of this year when we actually went forward with a nationwide advertising campaign. And we said, you know what? We're going to plaster our brand all over the internet. We're going to put it in trade publications. We're going to put it in emails. We're going to put it in all these places where we know our consumer is looking, because we're going to put this trusted brand forward. And we're going to say, hey, you know what? At this point, here's who we are. And then, right, the world went to hell in a handbasket. So we had to say, okay, now we've got this advertising going. Do we keep it going? Well, Pat, what's the one thing you've always told me that always sticks with me? Dave, you never cut your advertising. Okay, so the first thing I do is I don't cut my advertising because Pat McGovern told me 15 years ago not to cut my advertising.
Did I really say that?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
It might have been. It was probably the first hurricane that we marketed our way through at Fund. You know, so what happened was, you know, and Kurt, this is kind of, you know, the aha moment that you and I had together. You were the one who told me, get your brand out there in a different way and use your website as a vehicle. Create your own content. And I went, you know what? Boom. Here's what we're going to start doing. April 24th, 2020, and every week since, we've put a piece of content on our website. We've put product content on. We've put informational content on. We've put personal content on. You know, for anybody that really wants to go invest the time in, there's a whole get to know Dave Coughlin piece on there. Why? Because people want to know who they're buying from. That is a belief that I've had since the day I started marketing. They want to connect. They want to know. They want to understand those people. So Pat, to your question of success, yeah, there's a bunch of little things that I can point to, but it's all kind of bubbled up into this place today where we're sitting in a spot that, you know, knock on wood and God bless and everything else, we haven't really been as impacted as a lot of other companies because of COVID. You know, we are an essential business. We do things from food processing to pharmaceutical to bakeries to pet food to everything else. And we're involved in all of those industries. And now people start going, oh, Kusel, I've heard of them. I saw their ad. I know where this is. Oh, I saw something on the web. Oh, I got more information from them. Yeah, I understand who these guys are and I understand the product they're building.
So Dave, and Kurt, I commend you guys that keep pushing forward, because not only are you dealing with COVID, although it hasn't, as you just said, it hasn't impacted you guys all that much. But I got to believe trade shows were a big thing. And now you can't get your name out that way.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So if you would have pulled back on advertising and trade shows,
yeah,
you're back at square one.
Well, and Pat, I think trade shows are an interesting thing, and my belief, and I'm only one person's opinion. I don't know the value of a trade show really anymore, right? We've had these conversations for years. Oh, you got to be at a trade show, and then all of a sudden it became, well, your absence is more conspicuous than you being there, and it's like, well, that's not a reason to spend money on a trade show, Right. So what are people doing at trade shows to get more business? And there's a lot of trade show experts that'll tell you different things and all kinds of stuff. And it was something, honestly, that we've been struggling with for 2 years. We invest a lot of money in these shows. We do dairy shows, and we do poultry shows, and we do all kinds of different shows to get our brand and our name out into specific product segments. And yeah, we get leads and we follow up on them, and maybe they'll come. And you guys, we've had this conversation. I have a pretty sizable sales cycle. How can I decide that the guy that came to me at the trade show booth is the one that's going to be the one that's going to sign the deal, call it 2 years in advance when the project gets going? I don't know.
Right.
There's no real way to keep that tracking on there. So what are the things that you can do, that you can control your own destiny, right? What are the things, and I believe content is that play. I can have conversations with relevant consumers through my website based on what it is they're looking for. Do I tailor something to an engineer because I'm not going to the engineering trade show this year? Yeah, I will. I'm going to put a product out and I'm going to talk to them about it. I'm going to explain to them, hey, this is a great way for you to come in and take a look at our website. When I was working with Kurt and the team at Celtic on designing the website, one of the things that we hit at pretty early on, Kurt, was that idea generator. We have a spot on our website that engineers can come and look at custom products that we've built. Why? Well, engineers can't always articulate what it is that they want, but I have 250 pictures of products sitting on my website, and they can go, yeah, that's what I want. I want that drain, or I want that knife for the curd, or I want, whatever it ends up being. So that's another way, I think, in this world of not having a trade show, that I can point to people and go, I wouldn't have brought this stuff to the show anyway. So
Right.
Come take a look at it.
Right.
Two things come to mind, just to kind of, I think, piggyback what you were talking about. From my perspective, from a content perspective, it's been interesting to see what you've been doing from a content perspective. You hit it on the head, Dave. The light switch just went on, and what you've been doing is great. I also think I'd be remiss. We work, and Pat, it's the same thing. And Dave, you're all three of us. We have touched a lot of companies in our careers. I will say, with Kusel, and I give credit where credit's due. There's been a level of commitment, and you were talking earlier about crap hit the fan 6 months ago when things came to play with COVID and all that stuff. But there was a level of commitment. There was a want to never go dark, but also getting back to the buy-in. I look at from day one when you were talking about how you identified the need to build that personality, that brand, that was buy-in that really, that only happens successfully when you have buy-in from top down. And Dave, with what you brought to the table, and just from our perspective, having been able to work with your team, with Dave Smith, the president, and other players, there was that true want to tell the story. And when you listen to the stories and you talk to the people involved in the company, it's very clear there's a lot of pride and a lot of passion that's just screamed to come alive in a story. So I give credit where credit due. That breeds and helps breed success to a lot of the other things we're talking about right now. So anyway, I guess we talked about some of the things that you have been doing over the last 30, 60, 90 days. Let's look ahead a little bit, as hard as it might be. Fast forward to 30, 60, 90 days, 180 days, a year ahead. What is the horizon looking like? What are some of the challenges that are kind of burning in your mind, and things you're aware of, and just things that you're going to have to address? What are you seeing, Dave?
Yeah, I think again, the elephant in the room, right, is going to be in November. What's going to happen in the election? I think, that's something that as we inch closer to that date, I think that's one of the biggest things that we're looking at. what's going to happen to that economic environment moving forward? Are people going to say, you know what, I got to cram all this stuff in before the election because I don't know what's going to happen? Or, whoa, I better hold off until then. There's that uncertainty in the marketplace right now, I think, with people that are saying, I don't really know what's going to happen in November. So I think maybe I'm going to hold back right now, and I'm just going to kind of sit and I'm going to kind of stay back. So, you know, from a challenge from our marketing side, right, and the three of us sitting here talking about it, how do you get those people to maybe reduce the fear a little bit and go, you know what, maybe I should push something out before, or hey, you know what, the world is still going to be the world on November 8th, so I better go ahead and do this. You know, so that's I think the biggest uncertainty that we're kind of looking at is that economic environment and what people's short-term and long-term plans are going to be. You know, Kurt, you said a year from now. You know, honestly, I think if any of us could say what's the economic environment going to look like a year from now, I think we'd all be billionaires, right? We would know exactly how to play this and know exactly what to do. I think in my head it's, hey, you know what? I'm going to stay the course with my marketing. I'm going to keep pushing my message out. I'm going to make the assumption that no matter which way this happens, people are going to still have these essential items that they're going to need, whether it be food, whether it be medical, whether it be, you know, pet care, whether it be all these things where we're in the verticals that we're playing in. Those things are still going to go forward. Maybe they're not going to be on the grand scale that maybe they would have been if one candidate wins versus another, or however it ends up going. But they're still going to be there, and there's still going to be needs. I have to be prepared for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a good point. I think it's hard to predict, and you know, you have a roadmap. You do your best to put that roadmap together based on the objectives, goals, all those things. But at any point in time, we need to have to audible and take the off ramp and take a side road a little bit just to, you know, accommodate what's going on.
Yep.
So, Pat, from a digital perspective, maybe I'm going to toss it to you, and maybe we can kind of get that going a little bit. I mean, that's your world on a day-to-day.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Dave, I want to talk to you a little bit, Dave, about the website. You touched on that, and in your perspective on that seems, I just want to dive into that a little bit more. So talk to me about how you started. You just said you did the website about a year ago, maybe?
It'll be 2 years, I think, in October.
2 years. Okay. How did you approach that? What was your vision for it? What were you thinking before you went into it? And maybe just to give me an education, what was it like beforehand? Was it just electronic brochure, and now you're thinking this is a relationship builder? So yeah, talk to me about that, because I think that's really interesting.
So, you know, and again, it's really not so much as a way back machine either. This is really the third iteration of our website. The initial website that the company had was a series of PDFs. It was a very simplistic website. You could go get some basic information and download a brochure or two.
Right.
The second version of that was more of an informational piece, I guess I'll call it. Very basic information, a little bit about each product, a little bit about the company, you know, and it was really more of a vehicle to say, hey, if you like what you see, give us a call.
Right.
That's really what it came into. I think the approach that we took with the third version of the website was, this is our storefront 24/7. While we don't have a transactional engine on there, I wanted to make sure that whenever anybody came into the website, the store was populated. It had product. It had things people could look at. It was, if you want to look at an old project, you can look at an old project. If you want to look at products, you can look at products. If you want ideas, you can go look at ideas. If you want to find out where to buy from us, here's a list of your rep. Put your zip code in and get your rep. I wanted to try to make the experience better. And that was the whole driving factor, I think, Pat, was what's a better experience than we have today? And going back to your initial question, when we started the conversation, you know, 3 years ago with the team at Celtic, it was, how do we take the website, make it an extension of our brand, and ultimately make it our 24/7 sales vehicle? And I think the initial piece of that in the 2 years that we've gotten to has done that job so far. I think we all know that, you know, the one thing I think that we all took away from this was going to be a methodical approach. It wasn't going to be, we're going to change the website every 6 months and it's going to really look great and we're going to have a bunch of sales and we're going to do a bunch of, That's not how our business works.
Mm-hmm.
How do we continue to be consistent and deliver our message at any point in time on the website? And then sort of like what we were talking about, how do you get to know us? There's information, there's news, there's the history of our company, there's all of those things that help us tell that great story so that people know that we're there.
Yeah.
So.
Dave, the points you're making just resonate and touch me in a big way. Do you find that is also occurring with other manufacturers that you're talking to, or is it still a bit like where you guys were with the website 3 years ago, where it's like it's some PDFs, but I call our sales guy. That's what the job of the website is.
Yeah, I would say it's probably getting to be a split now. I think there are people who are saying, and again, this is something that's just been ingrained with me. I love the term B2C, or I love the term B2B. I love the term B2B2C. All that stuff to me is crap. There's a consumer on the other end of a website no matter what. And they're going to make a decision looking at the website, whether they're buying widgets, buying drains, buying travel, buying, anything at Amazon, right? It's going to be the thing at the end of there that's going to motivate them. So to me, we're all in a business to consumer business, because at the end of the day, that guy is motivated for some reason. Is it quality of product? Is it your message? Is it your brand? Yeah, okay, there's price that's involved and all that. Yeah, we all know that. But they got to feel good about their transaction. So to me, I think there's an awakening in manufacturing that they're going, boy, people want to feel good about buying my product. They might be buying this, steel girder, or they might be buying this multi-million-dollar piece of equipment. They still want to feel good about making the purchase, and they want to know that they're buying from a reliable brand.
Gotcha. Well, it's quite a move from 3 years ago, and I believe it's in the right direction. I don't know if let me ask you this, Dave. Where it's at right now, has the site met your goals? Where do you see other improvements? Like, okay, if you could do whatever you want, where do you see things going?
I think the best part, Pat, to that question is answering it in this very way. We planned for the future. The back end is open to do different things to it. We had a vision, and I think the great part is in the partnership with Celtic, the conversation said, okay, where do we really see this thing at 35,000 feet? But you know what? When we deliver it, it's going to be at 10. So how do we get to 35 from 10? And I think to your point, I'm happy with the website. I think it's a great website. I think it does a lot of the things that we want to do. But I think like anything else, there's more that can be done to it. There's a lot more pieces to it that we're going to take and we're going to put on that site. And it's going to, evolve as we go, like anything else should, right?
Sure. Yep.
So I think that's the biggest thing for me. The deliverable that we had in October of 2018 to where the site is, it's enhanced itself. We're working on other pieces of the site right now that we're going to add more enhancements to. And then we're talking to our reps. We're talking to our customers. What are we missing? What's the experience? They're all giving us great ideas, but the best part is I haven't heard anything yet that we haven't planned for.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What are some of those ideas that they've been, if you could share those? I don't want
to, so there's a lot of things. Our manufacturers would love a place to go that they can be protected and go in and look at things that the general public couldn't look at.
Gotcha.
We talked about that. We mapped that out right off the bat. How can they go in and order their own customized brochures with their call to action on it versus mine? That's a great idea. Yeah, here's my brand, but it's got my call to action on it. But my rep here in Wisconsin doesn't want them calling me. He wants to call himself. So how does he get his that? So we're going to talk about putting that kind of stuff on there. We've got partners that can fulfill some of that stuff for us. One of the big things that we're looking at is how the engineering experience or the engineer's experience can be better on our website. What can they do to get a level of information that they need that's also going to protect the way that our business is actually done? So that's one of the enhancements that we're working on, and knock on wood, in the next 60, 90 days, hopefully we get that on the website. So
one of the advantages we had, and it just kind of, to Pat a little bit, if I just kind of chirp in, what helped us a little bit is when we went through the branding exercise, to really unearth the personality and the DNA of the brand, and just talking with all of the players at Kusel, from the president down, that was so valuable to our team. But also then in really identifying the brand, we had to talk to reps, we had to talk to engineers, we had to get a good temperature gauge on what the outside community, outside audiences were thinking of the brand, what they needed from the brand. So I think that also, almost like the stars aligned, that certainly helped, not only in building the brand personality, but it certainly helped, I think, that knowledge and intel definitely helped us as we kind of transitioned into the web project, because that was definitely one of the bigger initial projects that we had, that we worked with Dave and his team on. So I think that a lot of that really came into play and helped a little bit.
And I think I'll add this, Kirk, because I think this is a good time to talk about it. I think this was a pure example of plan into process and everybody pulling on the same rope. You know, we sat down and we really had a good planning understanding of what we wanted to do. And it wasn't an immediacy. You know, when we got into the partnership with Celtic, it wasn't just help us build a brand. It was help us build a brand and a website and advertising and PR and social and everything else. And then what Celtic did was they put our vision for the plan into their process. And they said, okay, this is how we want this to work. And they came back and showed us, this is how this is going to work. And I think we had buy-in to Kurt's point, from Dave Smith, our owner, to the team here, to our reps, to our customers, to everybody else, because they saw that we were listening to them. And Celtic listened to us. And they understood that, you know, we want to make sure that the experience that our customers are having, be it an engineer, be it a contractor, be it a wholesaler, be it a rep, be it just a cheese manufacturer, they're all getting that level of engagement that they want to have. And I think, you know, one of the things that, again, and you know, this may be the Pat McGovern show at the end of this, one of the things, Pat, that you and I always talked about was really having partnerships that have the ability to generate revenue for both sides. And Celtic saw that vision, and that's something that from when you and I started together 15 years ago that I've carried with. And I said, you know what, I don't want this just to be about, you know, us just exchanging ideas and checks and the whole thing. I want this to be a long-term partnership. And I think it's growing into that. I mean, you know, I'm here 3 years, you know, this month, and Celtic is going to be our partner 3 years and 60 days. You know, that's what I want. I don't want to have, you know, sort of the rotation of different entities coming in and out here that are just looking to do one project and move on to the next thing. So.
Hey, Pat, let me ask you a quick question. I wouldn't mind. I'm going to toss something your way. So, and then I'm going to bounce back to Dave on this too. Let's stick a little bit with manufacturing, and just from a big picture perspective, you know, from a web perspective, Pat, I mean, you talk to companies all the time. You're counseling people. What mistakes, what's like the number one mistake you're seeing, or what are the big pitfalls you're seeing from, I mean, I want to say manufacturers, but any company in general? I mean, what are you seeing right now when you're talking out there? What people are not doing and they should be doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. My experience has been this: is people are not really kind of viewing what the website can be, right? Let's hang on the manufacturing thing for a moment. And here's my thesis is they really haven't had to invest in a website to develop relationships, to move the product along. Everything that Dave was talking about, they really haven't had to do that. Why? Because if I'm the owner of a place, or I'm the GM of a manufacturing organization, that's what my sales guys do. Mm-hmm. That's what they do. The website is just there because everybody else has got one. I guess I'll have one. That's the total wrong mindset, right? And when I come across that, I know I'm not going to try to sell them anything, because they don't really need anything. If you're happy with that, go that way. But you're missing a huge opportunity to engage more, to tell your story, to talk about your product, to get feedback, right? All of that. I think that is right now, I would say, for manufacturers, that's a big hot button, right? Mm-hmm. Their viewpoint and how they're coming into that. Today's point, I see that shifting, right? But for a lot, it's still prevalent. That's out there.
Hey, Pat, let me just follow up with one question. Do you think that with the generational influx and outflux, I guess, do you see that changing?
I do, because, and you touched on this, Dave, is, as a new generation starts coming in, right? How it's worked. I'm the guy in charge. I go to my Rolodex when I need business. I start making some calls. Oh, I'm getting a little bit older, and people are starting to retire and starting to move on and starting to spend more time with grandkids and do all those types of things. There's a whole nother generation coming in that doesn't operate the same way that maybe the three of us did, or older people, right? They've got a whole different mindset and a whole different way of going about things. The stats are, guys, that something like close to 60% of people already have figured out the problem that they want to solve before they call a rep. About 50 to almost 90% have already done research on a product before they even reach out to somebody going, hey, Dave, I got a question for you. Right? The whole game has dramatically changed, where before I've got to call a sales rep, I've got to do these things because I don't have any information. Right now, there's a lot of information out there, which is another reason why if I go to Dave's site or I go to a manufacturing site and I'm in the market for X and I can't find that information, no problem. I'll go to Y.
Right.
And that's where I start developing a relationship. It's not like someone's there going, hey, let me talk to you. Let me develop a relationship. Hey, it was on your site. You had some really good, that white paper was super helpful. I didn't know about the spec thing. That's really good information. Now you start talking. Now you start having things. So yeah, that's changing. And COVID is not going to change that. It's just going to accelerate that. Those people who get it understand it's like, I got to move now. I'm the distance and amount of time that's going to take is going to go from years just to weeks, right? Things have got to just move even quicker right now.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is. Yeah.
You had said, you had mentioned the game has changed and how audiences as the new generation comes in, they're absorbing and really craving information differently. And Dave, I mean, let's talk about engineers. That's something look at one of your key influencers, engineers. I mean, right? You've seen how that audience has really, over the course of time, I mean, it went from, this generation to, talk about now, what the engineers now that are coming out of school, how are they expecting their information? What's the expectation?
Yeah, and Pat hit the nail on the head too. COVID has accelerated the engineering community in a way, looking for information that I don't think any of us could have predicted. The vast majority of engineering firms across the country are still working from home. So, my reps that had, fireside chats at a desk with an engineer that they've had a relationship with for 2 or 20 years, that doesn't happen anymore. So where are they going to get their information? The website is the key, right? Those guys are looking for information in a variety of different ways. I've read a lot of studies in the manufacturing side where engineers, looking for their information. Yeah, they're going to websites. Where else? Yeah, they go to LinkedIn, but they're not really using the social media tools, right? We haven't made that jump into social media for the most part yet, with the exception of our national sales manager who goes on Twitter and does a few things, but it was really more from a different standpoint because Dan McMahon, who's our national sales manager, does travel 40 to 45 weeks out of the year, and we wanted to make sure that Dan could find a vehicle so that he could constantly be in contact with people. And Twitter is a great vehicle for that. But we're finding that, we're having a really hard time finding that target audience of our engineers. So we're using LinkedIn and we're using the website and we're using our reps. One of the things that kind of stemmed out of the content creation is we're taking the articles, we're turning them into PDFs with their contact information and having them send them out. And there's nothing better than when we send one of these articles over to them and instantaneously they send an email out to 150 engineers going, hey, you guys want to take a look at this, what Kusel's doing, this is going to be great for you. So we're trying to find a lot of those ways to get those guys because, again, those guys are, they've become more productive working at home. They're in a more comfortable environment and they're working at hours that we're not awake anymore. So, right. How do we stay in front of them and how do we stay relevant?
Dave, you touched on content a couple times, and I want to hang on that for a moment. Talk to us about your thoughts on content, how you approach, like, this is the content we need. how do you keep that fresh? How do you keep, once you get into the content game, the other part of it is we got to feed the engine, and that's a daily beast, right?
Yep.
Give us the whole picture on that.
So to be honest with you, what we tried to do, we approached it from a couple of different angles, right? So the easiest part for us is we have two product lines. I have a dairy product line, I have a drain product line. So I have built-in content right there. I can write an article every week about whatever product I want to talk about, and okay, then that gets a little mundane. So we listed all that out first. Then we said, okay, what else can we fill in with? What else makes sense? Hey, we're really good with our lead times. Let's do an article and talk about our lead times. Hey, you know what else is really good? We got welders on our floor. The average tenure of a welder at Kusel is over 20 years. That's a great story to tell. These guys have been out there dealing with our products for 20 years. So, we started looking at where was the human interest story. So now we got products and now we got human interest. And then we said, okay, what can we talk about with our brand? We wrote an article that talked about our history and sort of where we came from. And we kind of said, okay, that's specific to us. So we listed everything that we could do from that. And then the last part was, like I was talking about with you guys earlier, the human part of who we are, buying from people that you trust, buying from people that you know. Can we do feature stories on people who are forward facing in the company and maybe some that aren't, just to get to know who we are as a company? And then, Pat, honestly, we went old school. I took a whiteboard and I said, here's the calendar. When are we going to do all these articles by? Then we went in and said, okay, we got all the articles set. Who do we need to get some of these done? And we haven't really touched on it much. Guys, I'm an army of one. I've got the great relationship with the guys at Celtic, but I'm the only one here that does marketing. So I can't write 52 articles, every week and do my day job and do everything else. So I had to recruit. Dan McMahon, our sales manager, has become a writer, and he's really good at it. It's great. It's great finding somebody that has a passion for that. Gary Berquist, who's our sales guy on the dairy side, has become a writer. He's writing articles for me too. So, we shared the wealth around after having a plan. And I think that's the biggest thing. What are we deciding to use for content? We're just trying to be consistent. I don't want to do 17 drain stories in a row, and I don't want to do 17 dairy stories in a row. We're mixing it up. And it really is, it's trial and error for us. We've not been that company that's put this information out. We want to get into the white paper world. We want to get into the infographic world. But, again, we're taking baby steps. Yeah, you're 6 months. Oh, my God. For us, that's huge. The 6 months of content for us is massive. So.
Right. Dave, how hard or easy was it to recruit from inside the company?
It wasn't, because, again, especially with our sales guys, you kind of hit the nail on the head. They want to be sales guys. They don't want to sit down and write anything, and then when they start talking, they don't really have a voice. Then it's like, okay, we'll fit the voice into the brand. And I said, you know what, guys, I'm not going to make you change. I'm not going to make you do anything. Just get something on paper and I'm going to take it from there. Gotcha. And then all of a sudden, Dan found his voice, and Dan said, hey, I'm doing this on my own, man. I don't need you. And he went and interviewed our vice president of manufacturing, Jeremy Walker, to talk about our welding process. It was a great article. We put that out, and then all of a sudden our reps are sending that out to the engineers, and Dan's like, hey, man, I actually can do this. It's really great. Gary's still trying to find his voice, which is fine. Right. I'm there to support. I'm there to help. And there's some people here that didn't want to do it. I approached some people and I said, hey, I'd love to hear you. Nope, it's not my thing. I'm not doing it. Okay, I'm not going to push you.
Gotcha. Dave, finally on this is, it sounds like the people who are doing it are really enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
And are they seeing success? Are like the people they're sending it to finding it like valuable? Are they getting positive feedback from this as well? Good.
Yeah. So, again, the great part of the world, right, is everybody's on LinkedIn that's in the business world. And, hey, we're all creatures of habit. We all want to have some accolades. So I love when Gary or Dan sends out an article through their channel, and they're like, hey, I wrote this article for my company and we put it on the website. Or, when we did the feature on Dan, and Dan sent it out, and so we made it into a contest. Oh, hey, I'm telling you, here's how many views we got. Here's how many likes you got on LinkedIn. Hey, you know what? That page isn't really popular on the website, though. So obviously it's just your connections on LinkedIn that are, so we have fun with it and doing a lot of things. But it's great when they see success in things that maybe it's a skill that they didn't know that they had. Yep. And we're small enough, Pat, to be an organization that I can do that I can give somebody a, hey, I need your help, message, and they're going to come through and they're going to write something for me. And, it's great. And I love, especially I love the fact that Dan really grabbed this and ran with it. He came from organizations where he was very technical in his writing, and for him to be able to kind of put his own spin and put his voice and then keep it in the Kusel vernacular and our tone and everything else. It was really good.
Dave, you know, Dave, the other thing too is, speaking of Dan, what's kind of cool, and I remember reaching out to you right away when it happened. I mean, Dan caught was it Southwest Airlines? He caught their attention twice, and I mean, that was kind of cool.
So
Tell Pat what happened there.
So going back to, early on in the safer at home order in Virginia, Dan put a tweet out with a picture flying over the Grand Canyon on a Southwest plane, and he tagged Southwest in, and he said, I might be stuck at home, but these are the views that I'm, interested in looking at. Somebody from Southwest reached out to him and said, hey, can we use your picture? We'll credit you. And he's like, absolutely. Well, the first thing he did was he texted me. He's like, hey, what should I do with this? And I'm like, you absolutely want to do this.
Yeah.
So about a month later, Southwest retweeted his tweet out with the picture and tagged him, and he was super excited, and it's cool, Yeah, when you get a big brand like Southwest that wants to use your picture from their window, it's awesome.
For sure.
Yeah, You know what that is, Dave? That's what you said earlier. That's a success.
Yeah.
And that's what gets people excited. That is a success when Dan sees Southwest grabbing, getting their attention, and that gets him motivated. And I do think too, there's a lot to be said about trial and error when it comes to content. There is a science behind it. There are better ways in some to approach content, but I think also too, sometimes you learn by doing, and I think that's what you're definitely seeing. And your team's been out there pumping content and a variety of it out there, which is great.
And I think, Kurt, going back to Pat's point, right? Have I been doing this for a long time? Yeah, I've been doing it for a long time. Am I an expert? Absolutely not. It's, I haven't devoted my career to working on content or what should we be doing or what shouldn't we do. And I think the goal is twofold. Keep the brand in the back of your mind anytime you write anything, and really put yourself out there as who you are as a person. Because at the end of the day, Pat's point, how many manufacturers are really doing this? How many manufacturers have you seen that have put out a piece that's get to know, Dave Coughlin or Dan McMahon, and there's a picture of their family, and, hey, what's Dave's, favorite TV character? Oh, it's, this guy. Holy cow, I didn't even realize that. Or what show is this? Or, anything like that. I want people to connect with me in that way too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Question I have, so just in general, I mean, we've talked about a lot of things here today. What question should we have asked you, Dave? What's a burning question? I don't want Dave walking away, Pat, disappointed. We don't want that. We want Dave walking away with a smile. So my question is there a question that you would want to have been asked, or something that we didn't cover that it's just on your mind, like you'd like to address or just bring up because it's worth mentioning with what's going on today?
I'm going to go in this one place, and I want it because I know McGovern's got something. I can see it in his face. The question that you guys sent over to me about why an agency versus in-house, I thought would have been a great question just for both of you. Because, and I'll tell you guys this, the honest to goodness answer was going to be this. And I would have went to you, Pat, and said, hey, you and I worked in big marketing departments. We worked in small marketing departments. My goal in having an outside agency is to get a different perspective. You and I ran marketing departments where we got really great answers based on what everybody knew about our business. But what we never got answers on was what's happening outside these four walls. And what are the things that, Kurt, from your background, that you can say, hey, this client's doing this and this client's doing this, and Dave, did you think about that? Or Pat, hey, I just talked to this guy about this piece of the website, and what do you think about this for your business? I think it fits. We never had those discussions when we had our own internal teams. We have those discussions between the three of us all the time, and I think for you guys specifically, if that question could have been posed, and again, I answered it here, right? I think that's a great thing for you guys to talk about, because that's your value. You guys are bringing perspective, not just from Kusel, you're bringing perspective from Right Height and, the EdVest and Summerfest and all your other clients. And then we can sit and we can have a conversation and we can go, hey, here's how we could formulate this into working for us. So
let's just stick on that for a second, guys. This is Dave. Your answer would be more for help with people who are in your same boat, right?
Yep.
If again, if budget wasn't that much of an issue or something, are there a couple key positions though that you would say, boy, it probably would be good to have someone who just really focused on X or Y or something like that, or no, not really?
I would say if I had a magic wand and I could have one person here, I would probably want somebody here that could work on a Mac. I want someone creative. And it's not, and again, Kurt, I'm not saying it anything negatively against Jeff. It's, I could create so many more flyers. I could create so many more things that we could just do internally. That's the only person I think my team is missing. Outside of that, I don't think I would want anybody else here for the exact reason that I just gave you guys. Because I think you fall into a rut, right? And all of a sudden it's, well, we're going to make the donuts again, and we know who our competitors are, and they're doing the same things. Pat, to your point from a manufacturer's standpoint, if you don't have a competitor that's changing, what's motivating you to change? You have to have the vision to say, hey, this world is changing. I've got to change. If a competitor's not motivating you to change anything, you're going to keep it the same way. If I had a huge marketing team sitting outside my door here, and they all went, well, hey, all the guys we're competing with, nobody's doing anything different. Well, we're just going to stay on the path, and we're going to go like this. We're missing out on a lot of opportunities. We're missing out on a lot of things. I think, again, the genesis of a lot of the ideas and a lot of the direction that we're going from has come from, hey, this guy started doing this, and then we go, well, wait a minute, we could take that and we could go to here with it, because that makes sense for us.
Right. Yep.
I will say this, having had many conversations with the both of you, either collectively as a threesome or separately, you hit on the head. I mean, how often have we gotten together and we've just chatted about the world of marketing, advertising, digital, whatever it might be, and often it strays away from our own companies because we're bringing different perspectives to the table, whether it's a perspective that maybe we brought from another position at another company, or whether it's just from an agency perspective, it's like, yeah, I remember working on cars, I remember working on whatever it might be, and I think you're right. I think from our perspective, and Pat, I can't speak for you, but I know a lot of the companies that you work with, quite a variety, and I think that is something that should be expected from an agency, that you should bring a wide perspective and a wide point of view to the table. And if you're looking at it just as, let me give you an idea that's boxed in specific to what maybe we're doing right now, I think we lose. It's not going to help the client. First and foremost, our job is to help our client and to bring different types of thinking to the table, and often thinking that's going to challenge them. Very often in our situation, you ask the question, from our perspective, a lot of times we're hired for that reason. We're hired because we have that perspective, and potential clients might like that. There are some times when someone might be looking for an agency with specific vertical, but I think you're right. It's that wide perspective, and that wide lens. And certainly, Dave, it's probably what's made you very successful in your position right now, because you personally, from a career perspective, I mean, you're bringing different background and different perspectives that in some cases they're light years away from manufacturing. I think that benefits Kusel. That benefits, and it just, I mean, that's, I think, a big positive in your corner and what you've been able to do.
Well, and I'll say this 100%. If I could take the conversations that the three of us have had over the last 3 years and replicated them on a weekly basis, my creativity level would be at a different spot, because, to your point, Kurt, I'm not stuck in one place. After we get together and we have these creative powwows, to your point, and we're talking about this, we're talking about that, we're going here, we're in a different spot, right? And Pat, I'll equate it back to when you were, in your previous life, and you were bringing ideas, and you and I were just kind of, in the old terms, riffing. And you're like, hey, I got a great idea, but I'm doing this with this shoe partner, or I'm doing this with this education partner. But how could we take it and do it in travel? Okay, let's figure it out. Let's, and you and I go with it. It's the same thing now. Kurt, you're talking about all your partners, and hey, this guy's doing this. How does that fit Kusel? It really doesn't. But you know what? I'm doing this with this other guy. That could be something. Let's go here. Let's keep going. Those conversations are invaluable. And I think between the three of us, again, and Kurt, me having the relationship with Pat for as long as I've had, Pat and I've had this ability for 15 years. You and I've had this ability for 3 years. To put the three of us together, and it's like, holy cow, man, these are crazy ideas, but we can make them work. We can figure out a way to benefit all three of us. So I read a great thing today. I think it was on LinkedIn. And the quote was, when times get difficult, you don't cut marketing, you cut advertising. And I was like, you know what? I've always said you cut marketing, but you don't. You cut advertising. How do you keep your marketing going? It's things like this. It's the idea generation between three people who bring different ideas to the table that can see all three ideas and put it into one and then make it work. And to me, I think that's a huge piece of a lot of the discussion, whether it be in a partnership, in an agency relationship, in just a business relationship. How do you bring a bunch of different ideas together and put it together? You two guys are masters at that, So.
Well, I'll tell you, that's on that note, it's hard to follow up with that. I guess my final comment would be final comments, final thoughts. Pat, I'll start with you because I want to wrap with Dave. Do you have any final comments, final thoughts?
This has been awesome. It's been, I mean, it seems like we were talking for 5 minutes. It's an hour.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I can't believe we've been here for an hour and 5 minutes.
I mean, it just flies by. And you're right. I mean, it's like I could keep going. I could keep going another 3 hours. So this has just been awesome. Thanks so much, Dave.
Yeah, I know, it's been great. I'm gonna say this. I know that you guys have manufacturing clients. I know you have manufacturing relationships. I truly believe every manufacturer should look at this exactly the same way. There's a consumer on the other end of whatever you're communicating. And if you don't believe that, you're completely wrong. They're going to be motivated in some way. You just got to figure out what it is that's going to motivate them. So I can't stress that enough. And you guys hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I bring a travel background and a mortgage background. And yeah, this is my first stint in manufacturing. Yeah, selfishly, I think we're having some successes. I think we're doing some really, really good things. Yeah, we're a small company in Watertown, Wisconsin, but, we're having a big impact and people are seeing it. And I think that's what's important.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I don't think I can put a better period or exclamation point on what you just said. That was a great way to finish things off. And I will just say, Dave, first of all, thank you. It's been great playing ball with you today and getting your perspectives. Kusel has a great story. It's a great history, and I mean that sincerely. Check them out online. But it's so cool to see historic companies like Kusel not just stay historic, but as we talked about, value that history and transition it into today and tomorrow. And I think that's what's happening in Watertown. It's really neat to see what's going on there. So I commend you and your whole team for what you're doing there. And I guess to everyone out there who's been watching, thank you. Share, like. If you have questions, send them to us, Pat, myself, or Dave. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll definitely be glad to get back to you and answer your questions. And on that note, thank you guys, and I know I'll be seeing you guys really, really soon. Yep. Take care.
Thanks, guys.